Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Joseph Langley is my guest today. He goes by Joe, and I feel like this man has lived 12 lives. He came to France as a student. He later became a circus performer in the French circus, and that led him also to being a director at L'Oreal. Now he paints, he makes music, he makes videos, he draws, and after a experience where he lost his vision, this was all inspired. I hope you enjoy the show today. So welcome to the show, Joe. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I heard a lot of great things about you from Rosemary Flannery, who was also on the show talking about her angel books. And I am so excited to talk to you because your story is like 12 lives in one. You've done a lot of things.
Well, I'm a Leo. Leo are cats, and cats have 9 lives. So I think I have about 9 or 10 more to go.
Well, I hope you have like 20 more to go, because it sounds like you've already lived like 9 lives. It's crazy. So I just want to start from the beginning. Tell us what landed you in Paris. Where were you living before? When did you arrive?
Well, I'm from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, the home of Thelonious Monk and other jazz musicians, and Buck Leonard, who's a baseball player in the Hall of Fame. And I grew up like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn in North Carolina, fishing and going on adventure walks and discovering just the world that was around me in like a 10-mile radius. And then one day I was at school when I was like 15, and I saw a poster, travel the world, discover new places. And it was for the American Field Service, which was an exchange program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to sign up, and I signed up, and they sent me to France. To a little
That's
village,
a nice assignment.
To a small village in the south of France, near Bordeaux, between Bordeaux and Périgueux.
Yeah, and you were only 15 at this time?
I was only 15 at that time, and I spent a summer in a family. They had a farm. And so I helped them on the farm. I went to the market to sell flowers and vegetables and fruit. And then I came back when I was a student in university, when I was 20, on the JYA program, a junior year abroad. And that time I went to Montpellier in the south of France, and I was at the University of Montpellier, where I studied economics and French literature.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I graduated, we had career day at Davidson College in North Carolina. And there was a representative of the French government looking to recruit Americans to be teaching assistants. And that was the true beginning of my stay in France, because I accepted a job offer to teach English to high school kids. And I ended up just staying after that, and it was just like, everything just kind of happened like a snowball effect. Just got bigger, and it just grew and grew and grew, and then I've been here ever since then.
It sounds like France kept calling you back.
Yeah, I have a love affair with France, because when I was little, in my house there was a copy of the book Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince, and I saw this book. One of my brothers was studying French, and I couldn't understand what was in the book, the language, but I could like relate to the drawings. Because I was always drawing when I was little. I took art classes, and I decided to pursue my education. And I started taking French lessons, and I wanted to know what this universe was about for that little boy, in that book. And that was the beginning of my love affair with France. And so after that, I just kind of like I discovered and I came again and rediscovered, and I came a third time, and I decided that I wanted to stay and live here and just like, live the experience.
Now, being a boy from, the mountains and Huckleberry Finn and all that, like, was it difficult to move to a city after that? Do you live in a city now in France? Like, how do you feel about the countryside?
I really miss the countryside. I was born in very rural area. It was a small town, Rocky Mountains, like 40,000, I think, people.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived right on the outskirts of the city. And so I lived right next to a forest. And so I was always in the woods with my bow and arrow and my BB gun, and my little stick for snakes. And so I was always fishing. I was always like going with people to go hunting. It was just a very, pastoral life. And when I came to France, the first time I came when I was 15, I was in a small village. And there was a river very close so I could keep fishing. The second time I came to Montpellier. I was like 12 kilometers from the beach. So I would ride my bike to go to the beach regularly.
Nice.
And then the third time I came, I was back in Montpellier. And then I came to Nîmes, which is in the south of France. And
Mm-hmm.
that whole region, the Montpellier, Hérault, and the Nîmes, Le Gard, is very, 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 very like wild. And it's a Provence. There's a lot of rivers. There's a lot of nature. And then I came to Paris, and I kind of fell in love with Paris because I always wanted to live in a big city. Because when I was in university on that career day, I got also a job offer from a big bank to be in the audit department. And I had the job offer from the French government. And I decided to come to France because I didn't want to go to New York. I didn't want to live in the big city. I wanted to live in like like Atlanta maybe, because Atlanta was close. Yeah. It's kind of it's a big city, but there's a lot of greenery around it. And I was kind of scared to come to the city, but when I came to Paris, there's something about Paris that's very spiritual. I don't know. There's a lot of trees in Paris. It's very green, and I kind of liked it because it was a big city, but it wasn't big buildings.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I love about Paris, too. I feel like I could never live in New York after being here because New York feels so huge.
Yeah, New York is like, if you don't go to Central Park, you're always in the concrete and in the tar roads. And in Paris, they have a park almost every 300 meters. There's always a little park somewhere. There's always a little square. And there was something about Paris that just like charmed me. The people, the places I could go to. It was very, 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 very appealing to me.
It was the best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds, exactly.
And I want to go back to like your start here. So I know you were a teacher, you were a student, but at one point in your life, you were an acrobatic writer and singer in France. Can you tell me what that was about?
Yeah. What happened was when I was in Montpellier teaching, I came to the end of my contract, and my friends, they all told me, they were like, you got to stay in France, Joe. You're more French than American. You can't go back to America. And I was like, yeah, I would love to stay, but I don't have a job. I had working papers to teach for 1 year.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, look, we'll find you a job. And so they started looking. And a couple of my friends came to me and said, we found you a job in this company, Joe. They're looking for somebody like in marketing or in sales. And I was like, okay. So I applied to the job, and they said, do you have the working papers? And I said, no, I don't. And so that kind of fell into the water, that idea.
Yeah.
And then, so we were having a party one night. It was a goodbye party for Joe. And one of my friends told me, Joe, I got a surprise for you. And as it turned out, in that party, there was this little man. He looked like a munchkin from The Wizard of Oz. And he came up to me. He said, you're Joe. And I said, yeah, I'm Joe. He said, well, listen, I want you to come to meet my boss who wants to meet you. And I was like, I must be drunk because I got a munchkin offering me a job. And well, the next day I had pretty much of a hangover because it was a big party, and I didn't go to the meeting. And so my phone rang, And the guy was on the line. He said, well, look, we were waiting for you today. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. I thought it was a dream. And so I decided to go to meet this guy in Nîmes. And as it turned out, the guy, his name was Bartabas. And Bartabas is a big, he's famous. He runs a circus called Zingaro Circus, and it's a horse show.
Wow.
And he told me, he said, you're Joe. And I said, yeah. He said, can you ride a horse? And I said, I can ride a horse, but I'm not very good. He said, okay, you're hired. And I was
That's
like,
where the mountain life came in handy. Your old life was you know how to ride a horse.
Okay, but I don't have any place to stay. He said, well, you can stay in the barn. There's straw in there. You can sleep in there. And he told me how much I was going to make. And he told me all the details. And I was like, okay. And then this one guy who had like a caravan, a camping car, he said, you're not going to sleep in the barn. He says, I have a big camping car. It sleeps 4. And if you want to, you can be my roommate and you can share the rent. There was no rent in the end. The rent was like washing the walls and cleaning the covers. And so that was the beginning of my experience in the circus. And what happened was they wanted me to do a number in which I would ride a mule. And I had a little watering can. And I would water the piece, the track of the circus between numbers. And also, between each number, there was like a comic act. And that was my job, was to make people laugh between each number. Me and there were like 6 of us. I think there were 6 or 8 of us. But we had to, each time they finished a main number, we had to come in and like be chased by a horse or fall down or do something silly. And so my job was to cross the piece with the mule on the back of a mule. And one day, the mule died in the middle of the show. I was on the mule's back. She lay down, and she just died.
Oh my goodness, that's so sad.
And she was pretty old. And anyway, they cut the lights out. People started to applaud. They thought it was a part of the show.
Oh no!
They dragged the mule out, and so I was like, "Oh my God, the mule died. So what am I going to do now?" And so the boss was like, "You killed my mule." And I was like, "I didn't kill your mule. He died." And he was like, well, look, I'm sorry, but if you can't do the mule number, there's nothing for you to do in the show. And I said, and it was his birthday. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll sing you a song before I leave. And so I sang Summertime. And he said, oh, you sing. He said, okay, you're rehired. And I was like, but you just fired me. He's like, no, because you're going to sing in the place of your mule act. And that's how I began to sing in the show. And one of the other numbers that I had to do in the show was jump on a horse's back, stand up, and ride around the ring, standing up on the horse's back. And so that was the beginning of my experience in the circus.
So did you enjoy that time being in the French circus?
I really enjoyed it because I got to travel. I got to travel to we went to Berlin, we went to Geneva, we went to Milan and Pisa, we went to Bordeaux, we went to Copenhagen, and Aarhus, we went to Lille. We traveled around all of France and Europe, and I did it for 2 years, and it was just it was a dream life because it was a Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn adventure. I had so many stories to tell, so many experiences, moments, that were just like surrealistic, and moments that were fun, and moments that were so beautiful, and like riding in the truck, going from one space to another, seeing the sunrise on the horizon, discovering Germany, discovering Denmark. It was just a dream. It was a dream life.
Yeah, what a crazy time. How many people can say they worked in the French circus? I mean, that's really cool. Yeah. I was like, wow, what is this? And then another point in your life, you were working for L'Oreal Cosmetics, and you became the director of the company's Black hair care subsidiary. Yeah. How did you go from riding a mule to becoming the director in L'Oreal?
What happened was once I left, I came to Paris with the circus. I decided to stay in Paris and to continue my education. So I signed up at the Sorbonne, and I went to the licence and the maîtrise, the BA and the master's program in French Lit. And while I was to finance my college studies in Paris, I got a job teaching English,
Hmm.
and I was making very little money, so it wasn't enough to really live off of. I had to take a roommate to help me, like tide over. And
Yeah.
one day I bought a shampoo, and I'd seen an ad on the TV about L'Oreal, and it said doesn't sting your eyes. Well, when I bought this shampoo and I washed my hair, my eyes were so red. I was like, wow,
Ah,
this stuff is. And I just had an idea. I said, well, their marketing is really, really not on the point.
yeah.
And so I decided to write them a letter. And I wrote them a letter, and I just said, I want to help you develop your company, and I want to help you develop your marketing. And so, if you're interested, let me know. And I got a response. Well, what happened was
What?
they called me, and then they sent me a letter, and they told me to come in and have an interview. So I went in for
Wow.
an interview, and I ended up in charge of the Black Hair Care division of Goldies for France.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it was very mystical because the person who was in charge before me was this French guy who was about to retire,
Hmm.
and they were looking for somebody to replace him. And unfortunately, they couldn't find anyone to replace him. And so my letter just came in at the right time.
That's so wild. Like that's so serendipitous and like it just proves that writing letters works sometimes. People write a letter to your dream job or
Yeah,
some job.
and like the thing is, the most important thing is to be diplomatic. Because
Yeah.
I didn't write a letter saying that you guys really are not good. I just wrote a letter saying I
Hmm.
want to help you to develop your company, and that
Yeah.
phrase was very key because when you send a letter to somebody and you want to complain, tell them that you want to help them, and in
Yeah.
so doing, they saw that it was somebody who was positive and not someone who was negative.
I like that. That's great advice. You could have just said, "Oh, your products are terrible. I was in pain," and you wouldn't have gotten a job out of that, but instead you turned it around.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. It's just my nature.
Yeah, I love that. So you worked there for many years, I'm assuming,
I worked there
and
for 8 years.
wow. And then in 1995, you lost your vision.
Yeah, what happened was I woke up one morning. I was in Avignon. L'Oreal had sent me to Avignon. I was a sales rep after I did the stay in the Goldies in the Black Hair Care division. I decided
Yeah.
I wanted to evolve in my career, and so they told me, they said, well, in order for you to evolve, you have to become a sales rep and you have to work your way up. And
Wow.
one morning I woke up and I had this cataplasm. I don't know what you call it, but it was like just this film on my right eye, and I
Hmm.
couldn't see out of it. So I went to the emergency room. But in fact, I didn't go to the emergency room right away. A friend of mine, she came over at the end of the day, and she said, "You've been home all day." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I have this problem with my eye." She looked at my eye and said, "You need to go to the emergency room. That looks pretty
Mm.
bad." I went to the emergency room, and I found out that I had a mushroom in my eye.
Oh,
And so they said, well, we're gonna give you a treatment. They gave me a treatment, and I asked them. I said, well, can this happen to my left eye? They're like, no, no, no. We gave you a treatment. Everything's gonna be okay. And 2 weeks later, this was February the 14th. I woke up in the morning, and I had the same thing on my left eye, and I was totally
oh,
blind.
oh my God.
And then they just they put me in this whole care system. And it took about a year or so before I got my sight back, but I spent about a year in total darkness, just not knowing if I was going to ever be able to see again. And
That is terrifying. That's like my worst nightmare.
but
That's so
but but that's the irony of it, is that I was never afraid. My biggest fear during that whole ordeal was that my mother and my family not know, because I was in
um,
France, I was alone, and I
yeah.
did not want my family worried about me.
Wow.
And so that attitude kept me positive. And I
Hmm.
was also in denial because I did not want to accept that I was going to be blind for the rest of my life. It was just not a part of my life story.
Yeah. So
And
what were you doing that year? Is that when you started painting and writing?
I started to write when I was blind, because when I was in high school, I learned how to type.
Hmm.
So when you learn how to type, you learn how to type without looking at the keyboard.
Yeah.
So I started to write poetry. I wrote a lot of poems on my keyboard. I corrected them after I got my sight back, but I put down my ideas, as best I could, typing, on the typewriter.
Yeah.
And I just kept myself busy. I had a lady who would come regularly to make me food and take care of me. I kept myself busy because I just couldn't accept that this was going to last forever. And never once in my mind did I believe that I was going to be blind the rest of my life.
And what are the doctors telling you? Were they saying like maybe you will be?
They told me there was like a 98% chance that I wouldn't get my sight back.
98%, that's huge.
And I was like, well, how do you know this? They were like, well, this kind of manifestation, we've seen it before on people and they lost their eye. But you had it on both your eyes. And so
Yeah.
I had a friend who was a doctor in Geneva in Switzerland. And so one day I told the people in the hospital in Avignon that I was going to go to Geneva to see a specialist. And I went on the train by myself. They put me on the train and somebody picked me up. The doctor in Geneva, he looked at me and he said, like, I don't think that, this is curable, but I think that, like, there's something strange about you is that it's in both your eyes and we've
Hmm.
seen it before and we can give you like a treatment and try to like, cure the mushroom and whatnot. But, I think the only way to really heal you is to operate on your eyes and to clean out the vitrae, the inside of your eye, and
Hmm.
see if that will do any good. And so I went back to Avignon, and that's what they did. They operated
Wow.
on both my eyes. They opened up my eyes. They cleaned them out, the liquid. They put some gas in there, and it became liquid again for the pressure. And
Yeah.
and then progressively, my sight came back.
That is wild. And so you had to push. I mean, a lot of times we have to be our own advocate. Doctors just kind of give you like a death sentence and then you have to push for what's right.
Yeah, you always have to push. You always have to get a second opinion. Like if someone were to tell me that I had cancer, I would always fight fight it in my mind and fight it in my
Hmm.
spirit and fight it in my actions until I
Yeah.
found someone who would tell me like we can find something to help you out. I would never
Yeah.
give up. You have to because I think that the mind is a very powerful tool. And if we put it in our minds to do something, we look around us every day. We see buildings that are taller than anything that's ever been built before. It all began with an idea.
So true. Yeah, I really mind over matter. And you're a good example of that, going from blind to, now you're a painter and a writer and creating these amazing videos. Tell me more about your artwork. Like, so did you start with this poetry when you were blind and that transformed into painting and writing and now video?
Yeah, because my book of poetry, I called it Joseph's Gift. Because
Mm,
when I wrote that book of poetry, when I started to type at a computer, sitting there just like typing in the dark and not knowing what kind of errors I was making,
yeah.
on the manuscript, I said to myself that well, I did realize that like maybe I wasn't going to come out on top. I didn't want to accept it, but I realized it. And I called my poetry Joseph's Gift. It was a gift to my family. It was just
Mm,
like my life story in poetry
yeah.
and different experiences. And then as my sight came back, I started to sketch. One day I was in my hospital room and a nurse came in and I was writing a letter to my mother. And I was like, I had the paper in front of me, but I couldn't see the paper. But
Hmm.
I'd asked for a paper because I wanted to tell her. And then I kind of like scribbled on the paper because I was frustrated because I realized that like I couldn't make a sentence because I couldn't see
Yeah.
what I was writing.
Yeah.
And the nurse, she was very, very like very intelligent. She said, "Oh, you're an artist,"
Oh,
and ding, a light bulb lit in my head, and I said, "Yeah, I draw." And said, "Well, make me a picture." And so I drew an apple, and I gave it to her, and she's like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And then I realized that like when I get my sight back, I'm going to record things I see because one of the traumatisms that I had when I was blind was I couldn't remember the faces of people.
mm,
I couldn't
Yeah.
see my mother's face. I couldn't see my own face.
Yeah.
And so I said to myself, well, when I get my sight back, I'll make a picture for the nurses. That's what I told her.
Ah,
And that is what I did. I made paintings and sketches and drawings and pastels for all the nurses that took care of me.
wow.
And then one day at the hospital, they told me that they were going to have an art day. And what they did was all the patients who had like been in the hospital made a work of art, and they would have a big show, and the newspaper came, and they would sell the artwork to raise money for the hospital, for research and for whatever.
Yeah.
And so I made a series of paintings for that show in Avignon. And as it turned out, the day of the show, I sold like 20 pieces, and all the
Wow.
money went to the hospital. And I was the only person to sell anything because of my story, which people
Yeah.
found to be so incredible.
Yeah. A blind painter, a
Yeah.
blind drawer.
And so
That's
getting back
great.
to Joseph's gift is my poetry becomes a painting, and the painting or the poem becomes a song. And
I
so
like
today on my YouTube channel, there's about 300 plus videos, and I painted to this point about 1,000, maybe 1,500 different pastels and paintings. And it
even
just
busy.
grew. It has just grown. The whole project has now become like my life's purpose.
Do you think that going blind was life putting you in that direction? Because obviously your life had taken another track of L'Oreal and sales, and then the universe was like, no, you're going to be blind. You're going to
Yeah,
become an artist. Like, what?
I do, because I was 33 years old when I lost my sight, which is
Wow.
a very like mystical number. It's the age of Christ. It was a
Yeah.
turning point in my life. I had just asked my company to like change because I was tired of running the black hair care division because it was a lot of work. I
Yeah.
had a clientele which was like, they were with me, but it was a lot of work. It was a whole lot of work, and I wanted to do something else in my life. And when I decided to stay in France, I would like sing jazz in jazz clubs and, make drawings for parties and stuff like that. But I never really used those skills as a source of living.
Yeah.
And,
And now,
and
oh
now
no.
it has become my main occupation.
I mean, that's always so inspiring when you can make any kind of art your full-time job. I mean, how long did it take you to get to that point? Like, this is how you make your living now. Do you have any tips for people who want to be full-time painters or artists?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
No, I'm just joking. I think that I've talked to students several times, who come to Paris, and like I've been invited to talk to them about my career, and I think that it's good to have the financial security of a 9 to 5 job, and like the stress of not knowing if the next month is going to
Mhm.
be, be able to pay your bills is a lot to deal with. And
Yeah.
I think that, like, if you go to a professional art school, which I didn't do, I took art classes. I didn't go to like, the Juilliard School for Artists, and
Yeah.
I wasn't scooped up by some, firm to be their corporate artist. But I personally, I'm kind of like my parents. They didn't want me to do an artistic career because it's a very, very, very like trying road, and there's few spaces for many.
Hmm.
Like few people really, it's like the lottery. A few people
Yeah.
win the million, but millions of
Yeah.
people wish they had won.
It's true.
And in the art world, I have friends who are artists. I've like covered them and done promotion for them. But see, me, I had a very special story because when I lost my sight, I got a pension
Mm.
from working because I was unable to work anymore.
Yeah.
And so I have financial security.
Yeah.
So I can create without the pressure of having to sell.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice feeling.
And that is a very comforting feeling. It is a very, very unique situation.
Yeah.
But I see other people who don't have that security, and I empathize with them I really do, because I would not suggest to someone to go out into the desert and try to find water.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, there are oases in the desert, but it's just like the lottery. Few people find those oases, and you have to like think about security in life, and especially in this modern world.
Yeah.
And so, if you do have artistic skills, try to sell them to someone who can pay you regularly, like a
Mhm.
company or a situation that gives you security. Because me, I've always sought security in my life, and so when I had the
Yeah.
choice between continuing to struggle and taking the pension, I have to be honest. I took the pension
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I did not want to be like, the artist that had talent or maybe didn't have talent, thought he did, and was struggling. And so that is my only advice that I can give you is look for the security. You know, if you have a clientele and you have that security of selling regularly, do it. If you don't have
Mhm.
a clientele, then I would tell you it's a lot of work. It's a
Yeah.
lot of picking up cards and having people promise you that they're going to get something and then they don't come through. And
Yeah.
that's not a situation I would want to see people in.
Yeah, yeah, that happens a lot with artistry because also it's like, a part of your soul creating these things is like a lot of people struggle with putting a price on that and finding people that want your kind of work because like you said there's so many
Yeah,
talented
there's
artists.
so many obstacles, and I will say that like I am conscious of the blessings and the good fortune that I've had in my life,
Yeah.
and
Well, I don't know. Going blind is pretty scary even
yeah,
if you get to just make art now.
yeah, it was pretty scary, but I realized that like maybe I'm like the one person who won the lottery. I feel like I did, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that it fell on me because, like I said before, when I came to Paris, I was singing in clubs, I was
Hmm.
painting and drawing, but I had a job as a teacher,
Yeah.
and that was my rent money, and that was very important. And most of my artist friends who are successful don't just paint;
Yeah.
they also have to have a day job, to finance their their dream because
So yeah, side hustles.
you do, because it is good to dream, but it is not good to be a dreamer. And
I
you,
like that.
and you have to you have to live. If you want to start a family, you need an income. You need a revenue that's stable and steady. Because we hear the
Mhm.
stories of so many artists who, like the Van Goghs. Van Gogh came from a bourgeois family, so he
Yeah.
had like some kind of financial backing through his brother and his family.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a documentary about another artist who was exchanging his paintings for food to
Yeah.
feed his family. And then the day he died, or the day after he died, his work was sold for thousands. While his whole
Wow.
life he was struggling, and that is not a situation that you want to be in. If you have
Hmm.
the security, then do it. But if you don't have security, then also be conscious that in this modern world, you have to have a certain foundation to be able to do anything.
I like that. And how do you define creativity?
How do I define creativity? Creativity, I think we all are very creative. Creativity is making something from nothing.
I like that.
It's like baking a cake. You start with nothing, then you get an egg, then you get some flour, then you get some milk, then you get some sugar, then you get some butter. And all of a sudden, you've got your creation. And that's what I do as an artist. I take a blank sheet of paper, I take some pigment, and then I take my hands and I start to just like, let it evolve and develop.
It sounds like gratitude is a key part of your life too, like being thankful, thinking about, all that you have already, not always needing more.
Yeah, I'm a very simple person. I try to stay as humble as possible. I've had
Yeah.
like the chance in my life to have a good job in a corporation, be a golden boy, be able to, go to luxury events and luxury spaces. But my foundation was a fishing rod and a dream and a worm.
Mm,
And
I
so,
like
like I say, Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, I read those books and I was like, I want to live that life.
Yeah.
and it takes you. It took me to the circus. It took me to foreign lands. It took me to castles, and it also took me wherever. But I always come back to my little post on the edge of the water to fish and to dream and to think.
I like that. So at the end of the day, it's about simplicity and, gratitude, just being happy with what you have.
Yeah, and humility. Humility is very important. It's
Yeah.
like in my videos, people have told me, I've had professional filmographers tell me, I'll make your videos, but these are the conditions. And I said, I really, I appreciate it, but I want to make my own videos. They're like, but you don't want like the high definition image? And I was like, you know what? I'm a low definition person. I just want something simple. I just want to illustrate the message that I'm giving in my film. I don't care that it's all bling bling and fancy and pretty girls and boats and palaces. I don't need that to convey my message. My message is very simple in my poetry and in my songs, and I just want people to see me evolving in a space. And it doesn't matter if it's like film with a high definition camera or with my telephone.
And what do you want to do with your art? Do you want to change people's minds? Do you just want to share your story? What do you hope to do?
I just want to express myself. That is the most important thing to me. It's like, to fill in my day. And like when I sit down later today to write this song, I'll listen to the music and I'll see what it inspires in me. I just want to share whatever comes to me from the sounds that I'm hearing. And when I make a painting, I just want to like fill that page up with something beautiful, something that's got balance, something that's got color and movement. And I just want it, and I put it on my Facebook page, and I just want like, if I get one like, I touch somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you making your work for yourself or for others or both?
For both, because where I came from, in my neighborhood, there was kind of like a social pressure to get out of the ghetto and open the door for other people to follow the path.
Yeah.
And so, like my mother would always say, you got to be an example. You got to go further. You got to, and it was just like always there was kind of there was like not really a pressure, but an urge to push people to change their life, to go further, to go that extra step, to make a difference, so that other people can and will want to follow you.
I like that. Inspiring others, showing them, that it is possible, no matter what your circumstances.
It is possible because today, like I was saying earlier, I have been in so many spaces and places and with people that I would have never imagined meeting when I was back home in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I had a book in my house called Black Boy, written by Richard Wright. And today, his granddaughter is a friend of mine.
Wow.
Yeah. And like that day when I saw that book in my house, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. But today I can say that like I've just met people who like changed my life or inspired me when I was a child. And today they're friends of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about getting out there, and that's a big part of leaving home is you don't know what's going to happen. It could be discoveries like that, connections like that.
Yeah. Everywhere you are is a crossroad. Even when I was back home in North Carolina, in my small town, I met people. People came to me, who I never would have imagined meeting. And so it's part of the human experience. It's just like being open to encounter.
I like that. Yeah, opening yourself up to happenings anywhere. I like that.
Yeah.
And where can people connect with you online, look at your work, watch your videos?
I'm sorry?
Where can people connect with you online and view your work and watch your videos?
My videos are on YouTube channel, Joseph Langley. My artwork is on Facebook, Joseph Langley, artist. And my music is also on my YouTube channel, and it's also on Apple Music, on Deezer, on Spotify. It's on about 200 different sites for like streaming. Just put Joseph Langley, and it'll pop up. Apple Music, Joseph Langley, and there I have like about 10 or 11 albums, which are online. And I'm working on putting a new album online today or this weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I have about 10 albums which haven't been published yet, which are on the back burner, because I'm very, very prolific. I create a new song every single day. Like one artist said, if you want to paint, paint every day. If you want to write, write every day. And that is what I do every single day. When I get up, I say thank you to the universe. And then I sit down at my desk and I either re-listen to a song which I've created to find the flaw and make it better the next time. Or I create a new song, or I'll sit down and I'll make a new drawing, or I'll write something, and it's like every day. I'm the kind of person, I was in the airport in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and I was buying postcards. And when I got to the cash register, the guy at the cash register said, "They're paid for." And I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, see that lady over there?" He's like, "Yeah, well, she paid for your postcards." So I went to her and I said, "Hi, my name is Joseph Langley. You paid for my postcards?" I was like, "Why? Did I do something for you?" She's like, "Yeah, you made me feel good because nobody sends postcards ever today, and I saw you looking through postcards." So I told the man at the cash register that I'm going to pay for your postcards because I thought that was so beautiful.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, that was like a great story because it was like, she's like, that's old fashioned, the old fashioned way in this modern world of texting, Facebook and everything. People don't take a pen in hand anymore and write.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person, when I do my manuscripts and when I do my my songs and my poetry, I write them in a notebook. I write them down, and I do it every day. Every day I write something, or if I'm watching a TV show and they say something that inspires me, I'll write it down, and then I'll make that painting that comes from what I've heard or what I've seen.
So finding inspiration in the daily routine.
The daily routine, exactly.
I think that is a great note to end on. I'm excited to see what you will do next, Joe. And thank you for all your insights and inspiration. People, you can come to France. You can be a director at L'Oreal and ride horses and sing and go blind and get your vision back. I mean, you've done all the things, Joe. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.